Starting off, we have Stephen Wener today. Stephen, thank you for joining us. You are with the new company just formed. It's, how do you say it
Whistle
properly?
Beer,
Whistle
so
Beer.
brokered by EXP. Yep.
Very nice. Brokered by EXP. You are a hustler. You are always moving and shaking hands and visiting multiple offices. So, Stephen, for us to get to know you a bit more, talk to us about what got you into real estate. Everybody has a unique story on how they fall into real estate. How did you find it? How did you grow? And why are you working with more lawyers now?
Absolutely. So I have a very simple but kind of non-sizzle. I got into real estate when I was around 2021. Like so many other kids, what do you want to do with your life? I had no idea.
Mm.
I was just dabbling and nothing concrete. But I grew up around my dad, who's entrepreneurial. He owned a renovating company. And unfortunately, my dad is no longer here. He was one of my mentors and like a superhero to me. But he was also very harsh in his approach. He was born in the 30s, so post-recession. He grew up in poverty, and everything was just a straight line forward, no stop. And so I grew up door knocking, selling newspapers at 10, door knocking about 13 or 14 for my dad's renovating company. And then in my early 20s, my dad said, "Do you want to take over my renovating business?" And I said, "No way." Because it didn't feel like it would ever be mine. It was just going to be micromanaged by my dad. And
Mm.
as much as I love my dad, he acted more as a competitor than a supporter. And I think that was just the inherent competitive nature of always having to do more because he never wanted to go back to poverty.
Mm.
So he didn't really nurture, but he definitely taught me a lot of lessons about how to work, how to hustle, how to grind it out, and just go. Always go forward no matter what. So I said no. And then he goes, "What do you want to do?" And I had no idea what I wanted to do with my future, my career, but something with people. And he said, "How about real estate?" And I'm like, "I don't know." And he goes, "I'll pay for your course."
Mm-hmm.
And I said, "Okay." And so at the ripe old age of 23, I was armed with my real estate license. And
Good age to start too.
right, but I had no idea and I had zero aspiration. Like I was single, I was living at home. I was like, whatever. And so in my first year of real estate, I did what I basically did for selling newspapers and my dad. I went and I knocked on doors.
Mm-hmm.
And without really trying too hard, my first year, I sold 10 houses,
That's really good for your first year.
all just from door knocking and not taking it seriously, no plan.
Mm-hmm.
The only time I actually grew up was when I got married many decades later. So, so yeah, that brought me into it. And then most of my career was in Canada until about 2008. And then I wanted to move to the States. I was tired of 40 below and bipolar summers, you know, big mosquitoes, weather that would change on a dime. And then I happened upon my wife who's from San Diego.
Oh wow. So that's how you made it here ultimately.
Yeah, I married my green card and that's what her sister said anyway. But
That's so funny.
yeah.
Yeah, well, San Diego, you're always going to be above 40 for sure.
Yeah,
Probably above 50 at most times, and then summers are great. Sunshine tax is still a thing, but
it's a thing. Yeah, but it's I would say it's comparable to Canadian lifestyle with like the socialized things that you have to pay for over there. So
mm,
so do I want to pay less tax? Absolutely. Is California the place for it? Probably not. But
yeah,
I love the weather and I love being here.
awesome. Well, we love having you here too, man. So you came down here in post. This was after 2008. You came down here.
2008 is when I moved. Yeah.
Okay, and then you started doing American real estate from Canadian real estate. Obviously, there's not too much of a difference in these houses. Maybe the flag that you throw on them,
Right.
and then the laws.
Yeah.
So it translates pretty easily. The clients are still worried; they still have to buy a house. Somebody has to get paid off to buy a house, and so
Yes.
it was easy for you to come down here, and just pick it up and get going. Learn how to have them sign a different line, but other than that, for the most part, translated pretty easily. But now you're focusing more on talking to attorneys and lawyers, fiduciaries.
Yep.
I also see you at other estate planning groups where you're also talking to wealth planners, CPAs.
Yep.
So what made you go into this direction? Because you don't see an everyday real estate agent talking to these people. Most of it is door knocking,
Yeah.
cold calling,
Yep.
open houses. You're taking on a different approach.
So as I started to really pay attention to what's important to me, what's important to others, and information, value, and gaps. And I started to find that there were so many gaps in what professionals were looking for, what they didn't know existed, and what is actually out there that would serve them. So that's one thing, was a gap. The other thing was I used to be very, very buyer heavy. I used to love working with buyers simply because I could qualify them, understand them, really know what type of property they wanted. And first, second, very rarely third time out, usually first or second, I'd find them what they wanted. And we would move through the process. COVID came along. And when COVID came along, it just dried up all the inventory. And all of a sudden, people were making these offers that were insane. 50, 100, 500,000 over asking price.
Over asking with no contingencies too.
With no contingencies. And that was one of the first times I'd ever sold a home without a contingency. I mean, not even an inspection.
Yeah.
Was during that time. And my statement to my client was, are you sure you want to do this? You know what this means?
Mm-hmm.
And their response was, oh, the house is new enough. I'm sure there's nothing wrong with it. I'm like, okay, we're going to have to sign all these inspection waivers and things that you acknowledge you're doing it this way. But talk about a gut-wrenching experience, because now all of a sudden you're really buying. Yeah, you see it, but it's still like sight unseen. You didn't look under the hood. You just walked in.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like buying a used car and you don't know what's wrong with it. No Carfax.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Yeah. And then you start it up and it's like, oh, it's puffing black smoke. Well, too late. Right.
Yeah, that's a feature of the car.
Exactly. Yeah, the black smoke makes you look cool, right? You're dangerous. So the market started to dry up and my skill set went away. And what I mean by my skill set is I'm a strong negotiator. I always look for backstory. I want to create an alignment. I want the person on the other side to understand I'm there to get it done. Didn't matter when you had 50, 100, 150,000 beating, the next closest offer. The seller, right, out of pure, let's just use the word greed, because that's what it comes down to, right? You want to choose this one or this one? I'm going to take this one. Why is that? Because I want more money. So call it what you will. And then the straw that broke the camel's back for me, one of my clients was referred by another agent out of Minnesota, and it was his sister and her new husband, and we were looking for a place in Temecula. Well, between Temecula and Fallbrook, actually. And I showed them and wrote, I don't know how many houses I showed them, but we wrote 15 different offers.
That's a lot.
15. And that started to become the norm.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought to myself, no, I can't do it this way anymore. Like, I love helping buyers, but my time,
it's a lot of time. It's a lot of investment.
My skill set, who am I in this business? Like, am I the first guy in the door? And then can I get the offer in fast enough? And will they consider it anyway? So I started to shift, and I did my first probate in 2017. So prior to COVID, but I started cutting my teeth on it, but I never made it a focus. And then you and I are in a professional network. I'm in my 10th year of being in that network, and I just started getting surrounded by different trust and estate attorneys, family law attorneys, wealth managers, CPAs. And I started to figure out what were their needs in order to make them shine for their clients. And as I started to dive deeper into that world, then I came up with a term called farming professionals. So in real estate, we know farming, right? You farm an area, send postcards. People see these things for multiple years and they don't even know the agent, but they seem to have a relationship with the agent after X amount of time of seeing their literature.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, I figured, who's getting in front of professionals regularly? Who door knocks professionals? Nobody.
Mm-hmm.
No one door knocks. No one goes into the offices.
Yeah, like never. And if you do get door knocked, you're like, you're here to see me. I don't have an appointment,
Right.
And then it's a little exciting too.
It can be if it's like, whoa, somebody's here.
Yeah.
And so I just figured out how to ice break the situation, and that was by delivering value. If I know their pain points and I walk into an attorney's office, and one of the things I talk about your product, right, with beneficiary buyouts and how you do it differently, which is something I want to share with everyone today because so valuable what Dan does. That's why I'm here. I'm here to support him and his growth because he's doing something outside the box. And I love outside the box thinking. And I found a squatter solution, right? So unlawful detainers, if somebody's in a property and you have to get an attorney and work to evict them, it's expensive, it's slow, it's arduous. And then what happens? It's just such a pain. So I found another company that they get a lease signed with whoever the power that be can sign the lease. And then they find a way to move into that property. And now they've unfortunately kind of ruined the squatter's day because the squatter doesn't have the property to themselves anymore, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they call the cops and the cops come and then there's a lease. So now that person, it's a civil matter.
Absolutely.
So the squatter leaves, right? And when I can offer those solutions to attorneys, wow. They're just like, wow.
It's huge.
And I had a conversation with an attorney I work with that sends work to me regularly now about that the other day. And he said, very rarely do I find anyone in real estate memorable.
Mm-hmm.
But when you talked about that, I remembered.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't take a lot of value to make these people remember you because so many people, I hate to say it, but they're lazy in any industry.
Mm-hmm.
I call it a 95-5 rule, not an 80-20 rule. 5% of the people, in my opinion, do 95% of the work.
Yeah, and you're 100% right about that in San Diego. It's a huge statistic that most of the business being done right here in our county, very few, like 5%, 7%. Yeah. It's all being done by people that want to wake up, go out there every day, get the job done, and to them, work-life balance is more of a myth than it is a thing that they try to practice because they want to be the best. They want to wake up, hit the day hard, hit the week hard, and be the best in the industry, and they're going to stop at nothing for that.
Yep.
And you tell me like, oh yeah, Dan, you're very funny and casual about it. You're like, yeah, I hit 100 doors this week. I'm like, oh wait, that was offices. You drove to all these offices, yeah. And that's like so many handshakes. And like, yeah. And I have a very similar business model where I want to shake at least 100 hands a week, yep. 60 to 100. Because that's how you grow and that's how you stay memorable, and you're going to be in front of their mind instead of in the back of their mind. By constantly being in front of them. Yeah. And, that's how you and I met, was we bumped into each other, and then now I see you everywhere because I'm trying to be everywhere too. Yeah. And we're starting to talk to the same people and work with the same people now. And it's been really great.
Well, whenever somebody has a unique value or a proposition and it works, and all of a sudden that elevates your practice or the client experience, why would you not want to share it? And this goes back to when I first moved here from Canada. In Canada, you can go to pretty much any bank or credit union and everything's within a hair of each other. There's no FHA, there's no VA, there's no high balance, there's no conforming, there's no non-conforming, it's just a loan. Mm-hmm. So when I moved here, I remember I was working with a client and we were going through Wells Fargo and we got denied. And I go back to my client and I'm like, can't get the loan. Sorry, they said no.
Mm-hmm.
And then I remember I talked to some other mortgage broker. I didn't even really know mortgage broker, Okay, well, I didn't know. It was still like Canada, it's not really like that.
Mm-hmm.
There are some offbeat lenders, but it's still all within the same CMHC, Canadian Housing and Mortgage Corporation, which is kind of like Fannie and Freddie, right? But then when I start to learn these terms like overlays, I'm like, overlay? What's an overlay? Oh, it's like Fannie and Freddie write these rules and then the big banks write their own on top of it. I'm like, huh?
Uh-huh.
Right? And so I actually appreciate the fact that I came in knowing real estate, but not knowing real estate here, because I became a student again. And then I had to learn about all these loans, all these loan programs. Every year, the limit of where the conforming balance level will be changes, right? Like things are always changing. And then when you pay attention to, if things are always changing, then there's always information I can update people with.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can do that, then you become a source. If you become a source over a long enough period of time, you become a go-to. When you become a go-to, then that business is yours to lose if you mess it up. So that's my intent. My intent is I want, like, my big hairy goal for all of you is I'm going to walk into at least 1,000 attorney offices, work to develop a relationship with at least 100, and then receive business from 50 to 60. And then if you do the math, 50 to 60 attorneys, minimum 2 transactions a year, that's 100 to 120 transactions. And it's only by doing math. Like, yeah, you have to be good at what you do, but if you're good at what you do, you can then build a business around math.
Mm.
And I'm not a math guy. 5 times 5 is 25. Don't get me into like stoichiometry or stuff like that, but that math I can understand. And so I work to bring as much value as I can, show up consistently, bring in new offerings, right? Like, did I ever show you my menu of I have this laminated menu of real estate that looks like a Chinese food menu.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm. And that's what I bring into these law offices. And even though I've been to so many recently, now I'm taking what we created, the flyer, and I'm going back, and I'm like, beneficiary buyout done through traditional loan channels. And just last week, I went to one where if this relationship develops, they have 3 firms. One's in Tustin, one's in Temecula, one's in San Diego. Same law firm. And oddly enough, the attorney I was talking to was saying, "Oh, I'm doing that right now. I'm trying to figure it out."
Mm.
And it's for an $8 million house in Manhattan Beach.
Yeah, crazy.
Right? But it's just like, how do I deliver things that people don't know exist that will make their life easier? And I show up in a professional manner, and I repeatedly show up. Not every week, but your follow-up, your touch points, invitations to lunch, develop a relationship, and then it's yours to lose. And people don't do that.
Mm-hmm.
People just don't.
I think they forget that it is yours to lose. I think that they don't put that last bit on the equation.
Yeah.
They just think, oh, if I do this enough times, it will come to me. And it's just not how it works. If you do it enough times, now that's your at bat.
Correct.
Then
Yeah.
if they call you or ask you for something, it's not going to, maybe will be business, maybe won't be, maybe it's just a question. But then that's them reaching out to you, and then you need to keep maintaining that until it grows and grows and grows. It's like growing a garden. You can't throw a seed in the ground and then not water it and come back and expect there to be a full-blown thing. It's something that takes months and sometimes years to cultivate over time.
Yes.
And once you get that one opportunity and you knock it out of the park for them, then they're there to introduce you to more people. And then you have a lot more to lose. You have those relationships. You have those their livelihood. They're sharing their livelihood with you too.
Yep.
So it becomes more responsibility. But with the probate world too, it's just such a game changer when you're able to solve these problems, because these are expensive problems you're solving. This isn't a first-time home buyer anymore, where you're, like you said, you're putting in 15 offers to hit one, And that's the first house that they're going to have maybe for the first 5 to 7 years.
Yeah.
And then they upsize, and then that house is their most permanent house. You're not really solving that issue. You're solving more of like, I have an estate that the bank is trying to take from me because my family member died and they didn't pay their mortgage on time,
Yep.
and now you need to sell it for me. But there's also these other lawyers coming after my estate too, and I'm working with this lawyer who introduced me to you. And now how do you solve my problem? And then that's where the true value becomes, because a typical real estate professional, if they just get pushed into that situation, they're probably not going to know what all these moving parts look like.
No.
But for you talking and having these conversations, and especially being in our professional network for 10 years, just from hearing all these case studies over time, especially with estate planning and real estate networking, is that you'll say, oh, okay, this person I know does this person does this. I'm going to get you introduced to these 2 factors. And then we're going to wait until this date because that's when this expires to then put it on the market and then sell. Or maybe it came out of probate and they have a court approval to get it done within 3 months, and that's all you have. So you understand what's at risk, what's at bat, and the person that invited you into that transaction, they're hoping that you get it done so they look good as well.
Yes. And for those of you that aren't very familiar with the probate world, there's a lot of emotion and a lot of moving parts, and there can be several people associated to the estate, and there's a lot of expectations. So, a simple trust administration where let's facilitate the distribution of all the assets. If it's non-contested, you're just selling the house. No problem. If you get into contested administrations, which I had one where it was, wow. It was so. Every conversation started with why the one person I was now talking to hated the other one so much. And, I also have to manage those conversations and manage the emotion so that we can just focus on the task at hand, which is my service to them. Because, to a degree, we're all therapists, but we're not getting paid to be therapists. We're getting paid to take care of this particular piece of this puzzle we got introduced into. And my first probate I got thrown into, let's just say one of my attorney buddies was like, hey, I'm like, sure. Back in 27, I have never done one.
Mm-hmm.
And it was something that should be a case study. So I was selling a house in Escondido, met a guy, bought that house because he was a really wealthy guy, but his wife's mom lived in that street. And they said, oh, by the way, I'm an investor. And I'm like, oh, I have this property coming up. And this property, wow, it was such a doozy. This gentleman, Franco, comes to me. So he was going to be the administrator of the estate. And his dad had passed away. So his dad had remarried. And the lady that he married, they didn't have a great relationship. But before his dad had passed, he did a reverse mortgage on the house.
Oh, yeah.
And when he did a reverse, the wife he was now married to, Franco's stepmom, she had to remove herself from title because she didn't qualify for the reverse mortgage because there are rules with reverse mortgage.
Yeah, she probably was younger than him.
Correct.
Younger than the
threshold,
yeah.
right? And so he passed away while she was off title.
Oh, no.
Oh, yeah.
And then I bet the reverse mortgage company was eyeing that house, huh?
Right,
yeah.
for foreclosure. And she filed for bankruptcy.
Oh, my gosh.
Oh, yeah. And
it just keeps getting worse.
Oh, yeah, no, it was amazing. And very hard for me to show the house because it was so emotional to her. And she's a tenant. I can't even call her an owner because she's not on title anymore, right? So I was able to show the house a couple times. I showed it to this investor, and then he went back a second time. I arranged for him to get in. I couldn't be there for some particular reason, but we arranged a viewing, and he brought his young son. And when he brought his young son, she had a little dog. The dog bit the son in the face.
Oh my gosh.
And he was hospitalized. And he wasn't healing.
That's not good.
So the Humane Society had to go get the dog
Mm-hmm.
to test it to see what was going on. And the bizarre part, so everything got shut down. No more visiting the home, no more anything. But the bizarre part was I knew the house was going to close. I knew he was going to buy it.
Mm.
And I knew he was going to buy it because he said something to me after the whole fiasco was ongoing. He called me and he said, she never said sorry.
Mm.
And oddly enough, when he said that to me, I knew he was buying the house. He was buying the house because he had the power to then evict her,
Mm-hmm.
which he did. It's a very sad state of affairs for what happens sometimes. And I equate myself to a trauma room doctor, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
And why do I say that? It's because you don't know what's coming through the door.
Absolutely not.
Right?
Yeah, and the personalities, the existing relationships,
Yeah.
the dynamic between the family and then the seller and the buyer, and then the surprises with that come up with selling a house.
Correct.
Oh hey, there's this miscellaneous title problem now. That didn't get solved because this person wasn't on title with the servicer. So it does come up like that too. And I think what's also exciting is that we now have this new product that we can work on too, where it is its own case study as well, where instead of having to just sell to another buyer, you can help families retain it retain their own real estate that they inherit.
So that's what I want you to explain that, and why I find you so valuable, because this does happen all the time to all the attorneys I've started taking this to. I'm like, do you come up? Oh, all the time.
Mm-hmm.
It's an all the time scenario. So explain what you created. Explain your genius, Dan.
Yeah. So when it comes to real estate and when it comes to inheritance, this is mostly where it's at. Most of the time, you'll see a family inherit grandma's house. They'll inherit their parents' house. They'll inherit their aunt's house, and it's either through a trust. They're a beneficiary on it, and the trustee is the person that's inside of following the instructions written. And then for probate, that means that there's no trust in place. And so the court's going to determine what's going to happen and approve everything and who gets what. So where I come in is if there's a beneficiary and they just don't want to watch the house get sold and they want to actually keep the house and keep it as a primary residence. In California, we have Prop 19. Currently it's Prop 19. It could be changed and be called something else.
Never know.
But that allows you to inherit the tax basis that grandma had or that your parents had. And some of these tax bills for a year are $1,500, as low as that.
Yeah. And again, for those of you that don't understand Prop 19, it has to become your primary residence. You have to move in within a year. So there are different rules that you need to understand about Prop 19, but it's definitely a legal thing that you want to understand to keep that low tax rate. But I just want to make sure people get it, because it's misunderstood at times for how you think it can work versus how it actually works. So you got to move in. It has to become your house.
Yeah, exactly. It has to be primary to primary is the definition I use for that. It was their primary house, and now it's going to be your primary house.
Yeah.
And so you get to keep the tax rate, which is huge. That's hundreds of almost thousands of dollars worth of savings, especially when these houses become like $1.5 million over time.
Yeah.
And then the other thing too is that traditional banks don't want you to be able to leverage that equity in the house. They force you to come in with your own funds. And so that's the other bottleneck with beneficiaries not being able to keep the real estate in the family, is that the bank is going to tell them, okay, well, if you're paying off your brother and you inherited half of this house, then that means you need to bring in, let's say the house is worth $1 million, which is realistic in our San Diego market.
Sure.
You have to bring in a $500,000 down payment. I sure don't have that lying around. I don't think the average home buyer in that situation has that lying around.
Sure.
And so what that does is it becomes a deal killer, and then they have to say, hey, we just have to sell this house.
Yeah.
So for me, where I step in with this, and where it really shines and helps families is that I'll leverage that equity in that house that is already theirs, that portion that is their inheritance. That's their down payment now. A portion of that is their closing costs now. And most of my clients, they actually walk out of this transaction typically spending between $1,000 to $4,000 total.
That's
And
out of pocket.
that's their out of pocket expense.
That's not with real estate commissions and things like that. That's just out of pocket.
Yeah, so that's what my buyer spends out of pocket.
Yeah.
And so once that house gets sold, then you're going to see like how everything's settled, that equity in the house, that you see that translate as a down payment, the closing cost, the house pays for itself essentially. And out of pocket, you just paid maybe an appraisal and a few other inspections, things like that in order to get the whole transaction done. And it saves people a lot of money because now you don't have to tap your savings.
Right.
It saves them time on not having to go through private and hard money channels who are going to get this done for you in a very similar way, but they're going to charge you 3% or sometimes I say 3 to 5% because it really depends on your situation. But
yeah,
that's money that you're spending up front to make this happen. And then they make it your job to go and qualify for a refinance down the road.
And what's the interest rate with the hard money? Let's talk about that.
Man, that can go from like 10 to 15% or more in some cases on top of that charge that they're giving you too. And so you're having to carry that into a refinance. And sometimes you might not be able to refinance and you're forced to sell down the road too.
Right.
They don't guarantee that you get it done. So what I do is I just come in with a one-time close with that leveraged equity, and you're not having to pay those 3 points. And it's just a one-time clean close. You have a new primary residence. You can also turn it into a second home and investment property too, depending on how we're going to go about it. But most of the cases, people just want this to be their primary. They want to inherit that tax rate, save hundreds of dollars on that as well, have their closing costs and down payment covered, and then they're out of pocket $1 to $4,000 typically on these. And my case studies are crazy. These aren't like the very straightforward transactions.
Sure.
You got so much moving parts, and when it's in your family, you're always going to have people bickering.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, everybody's happy because the uncles or aunts or daughters or brothers or sisters, everybody gets paid the exact same that they would if they sold the house. We're actually getting it at value, which is great because that increases more of the amount of payoff that everybody gets. And that also increases the leverage that the buyer has.
I think that's brilliant. And just so again, the viewers understand, this is a traditional loan. Like this,
correct.
This is a regular, as if you were buying a house on your own, going through a bank or a mortgage broker, right? So maybe you can just kind of touch on that because I want people to understand this isn't like hocus pocus. You figured out how to take all these moving parts. You mentioned you don't have to share which companies, but you work with a specific title and escrow company that understand how to package this as well. And this is where your genius comes into play because you have to make it all work in a specific way or it won't.
Correct.
Right? So without giving the secret sauce away, maybe you can just kind of explain it a little further because it's not, again, like so many people will probably hear the first time and like, well, okay, that can't be a regular loan. So which program is it?
Yeah. And it sounds too good to be true too.
Yeah.
Which is the other problem I have. It's too good to be true sometimes. But it's really not. It's a real program and it works. The biggest thing when it comes to knowing if you can do this is how much equity is in that property, right? That's going to be the biggest determiner.
Is there a threshold?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, if there's no room for there to be equity, it's like selling a house. If the house has no equity in it, is there going to be a profit for the seller?
Sure.
So it's very much just like that. I have to see what's available to use.
That's what I mean. Is do you need like to see 30% equity, 50%, 10%? Like, because again, I'm just wondering based on your calculations, what are you looking for as a bare minimum for equity in the property?
Yeah. So bare minimum, I mean, I do want to see at least 50%.
50%?
50% is like the best starting point because then that means that it's going to be, if it's between two people, when the one's the buyer and one's the seller, brother, sister, That's a great starting point. If there's less equity in there, then that means that there just has to be more give on the buyer. Maybe instead of that 50% down payment, then they're going to be, if there's 30% equity, maybe that down payment's going to readjust to being 15% down.
Okay.
Because of the 50-50 split that they have to incur. So it's very situational. You want to see the equity be equal to how much each person's entitled to get.
Sure.
So that's like this first starting place for me. The second thing is that they have to still qualify. It's still a loan. So you have to qualify for the loan. You have to have your income, your assets, and your credit in order to pick up these loans. I can do some pretty crazy stuff. So sometimes I can state your income and I can still close these loans for you.
What I was going to say, talk about that. Because again,
Yeah.
we go from you have to still be employed to, hey, maybe not. But what does that scenario look like? Because again, that's not going to be a one size fits all. That's more like you have to see a specific opening in order to say, hey, we have this option.
Correct. So when it comes to the spread of these loans, you have they're all going to be fixed. I can give interest only loans on these. I can make them adjustable rate mortgages. I can kind of tweak how I want them to be. I can adjust the term as well to be 10 years interest only and then a 20-year fixed loan, things like that. So I have the bells and whistles that I can put on these, which is really nice and flexible. On the other side too, not everybody's a perfect fit.
Right.
You and I, our pay is going to be different than an engineer at Qualcomm. You know, they make salary. You and I, we have to go and close a transaction in order for us to get a paycheck sometimes. Sure. So we might have to do what's called a bank statement only program. We might have to do a stated income where I write down what your income is, and then you have to have a certain amount of money in your bank and a down payment. And if you satisfy that, then you can magically get a loan. Mm-hmm. So what I'm doing is I'm looking at the person's unique situation, and I'm pulling over certain products that would be able to satisfy the lack of income, the lack of credit sometimes, or the lack of assets sometimes. I'm able to place that in. I'm able to then place on top the terms. Mm-hmm. So if they want a 15, 20, 30, 40, now they're talking about 50, that I place in the term, and then I'll place in the amortization. Is it going to be fixed? Is it going to be adjustable? Do you want it to be interest only for a little bit? What does that look like? And then the support with our escrow and title, that helps you fulfill Prop 19, helps you fulfill clean title commitments. We want to get the prelim ahead of time before we even start to know that there's not going to be any issues, which is huge when it comes to working with lawyers, because you have to be clean. Everything needs to work the way you say it does, and timely. So that's kind of how it's all pieced together, is you want to make sure that the property qualifies, the person qualifies, the product fulfills the goal of that buyer, and fulfills the goal of the seller, and then the property can close and transact. So it's not different than what you and I have seen in our careers, but it's packaged carefully, and everything's examined 3 times over to make sure that it's good to go. So it's more airtight when it comes to closing these, but the client's going to be the one that benefits the most, because they're keeping the real estate they're keeping their grandma's house. They're keeping their parents' house. They're getting a better payment for being in a generational family that has lived in the same area. They're able to have Christmas as a family in that house like they did growing up. You know, so on the bigger side of things too, for these families, they're extremely grateful, because sometimes these people would have never owned a house in their whole life. And the fact that this program exists, it allows them to leverage what would have been their inheritance to keep the house that they grew up in, or to keep the house that they would visit as a kid. Yeah.
I think there's something special to be said about that, because again, there's a lot of pain and emotion tied to properties, you know, based on, I grew up there, or this was my so-and-so's house, or we've had this for generations, or so at times that definitely can factor in. I just find it really interesting that, again, there are people that hunt for gaps to find these things where it's too good to be true, right? And everyone just doesn't jump on the bandwagon right away, right? It's just like, hey, this is really here. And it's still, I mean, you're an army of one, right? You have me as like an army, and some other professionals that you've shared this with that work to leverage it. But stuff like this should be more mainstream because it helps so many people. It's just a matter of how do we bring it out there. But unfortunately, so many people don't know how to look at the loan scenario to know what pieces to pull or to work properly with title and escrow so that they know exactly how to piece it together. I find that's the tragedy of so many businesses. It doesn't matter if it's, real estate and lending, or if it's insurance, or if it's like, you name it, like a service industry,
Mm-hmm.
even wealth managers, right? If they don't just create the future of growth properly by knowing exactly how to do this, this, and this. And that to me is one of the big driving forces of why am I doing this? Well, I need to stay relevant in order to be valuable.
Mm-hmm.
But then again, when you're working to stay relevant and find the gaps and becoming valuable, then value exceeds just mediocre every day of the week. And
Absolutely.
no one's like, you don't walk into a restaurant that has a B- on the door. Right?
No.
Just don't.
Yeah.
And they have grades. So, it's a fascinating industry, and real estate as a whole, it hasn't changed a whole bunch, but the way the market keeps adjusting, that's what determines how we have to readjust in these markets.
Mm-hmm.
And right now, especially since the mortgage meltdown and Frank Dodd, and you just have to have a number of days to review documents, and like there's so many things that have changed in order to protect the consumer and things of that nature. But the market as a whole, it's either up or it's down. And then how do you navigate those things? And then how do you find products to make things happen in more niche pieces,
Mm-hmm.
which is this world? And anytime you can be valuable on either side of the fence, I still work with traditional buyers and sellers. Not just everything is a referral from
Mm-hmm.
an attorney or a wealth manager, but
Yeah, absolutely.
just developing value-based content that people can gravitate towards and go, I want to work with that person. They seem to know what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
That's the type of professional I choose to be in this world. So that's what I got going on right now.
No, absolutely, man. It's good to be able to have your expertise as well, because you've been doing this for forever.
Since 1993.
1993, yeah, since I was born.
Right.
So, it's just great to be able to share the same space as you, and have these talks as well, because I always learn something new from you as well, like whether it's more about how you grew up or how you carry yourself or how you you kick my butt with how many hands you're shaking a week. I try to just do 100 and you're over here at sometimes 1,000 maybe. But no, it's just good because you're someone that is hungry, is striving to transact in such a way where you're gonna grow the other person's business just
Yes.
by doing the best that you can for them and their client to make them more referable, and then by proxy you are more referable by doing that too. So
Yeah.
it's just great to be able to do this stuff with you and be able to talk to the same people and hear the same stories that, oh, I've worked with so and so and they were great. So it's great that we have that, and I think that we're going to be getting pretty busy, and down the road these products are going to continue to grow and grow more, and
Yep.
I'm going to be coming out with some crazier and crazier stuff to fill these gaps more, and just help solve more problems for more families.
And that's where it's at. The more problems you can solve, the more business you'll receive, because everybody's looking for someone who can solve their issue. So yeah, I look forward to growing with you as well, doing live seminars for attorneys and professionals, delivering content that they're like, oh, and then just moving it forward, and then create a rinse and repeat, but with a high level experience. So I look forward to doing that with you.
Yeah, likewise, man. Same here. And so, Steve, for everybody, what would be the best way to get in contact with you? Where do you, just remind everybody, where you work again, remind them of your name and how to say it properly, unlike me, and your phone number, your email, your Instagram.
Appreciate that. Thank you. I work for the Whistle Beer team brokered by EXP here in San Diego, but I cover a few territories. I'm also in Orange County, LA County, Riverside County. So I list properties there as well. My email is Steven at sdsoldbysteve, STEVEN at SDSOLDBYSTEVE. And a phone number 760-300-9166. If you just put in my name, Steven Wener, all my profiles will come up, whether it's Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. And if there's anything I can ever be of service for you, whether it's buying, selling, or just a question, I always try to make myself available, because that's the other thing. Nothing has to translate into a sale. But I believe valuable content, if it helps you move forward or make a decision, either to stand still, decide no, or move forward, that's where I try to be of value. So I appreciate the time today. Thank you so much, Dan.
Yeah, anytime, Steve. Great having you. Thank you.